Texas Congressman Lance Gooden joins us right now. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So what is the United Nations doing exactly?
Well, the United Nations is working with countries like Mexico and facilitating the invasion of our nation. They're providing debit cards with around $400 every 2 weeks to migrant families. They're setting up these camps. They're instructing them on how to navigate our asylum system. And they're using United States taxpayer dollars that we give to the United Nations. We provide over 20% of their budget annually, I believe. And they're helping them to come into our country and providing them a roadmap to staying here.
And how are the NGOs, the non-government organizations, figuring into this equation?
Well, they're working with various NGOs, primarily on the U.S. side of the border. Once they get here, the NGOs take over and help facilitate moving them around the nation. But what's so absurd is that the United Nations is operating south of our border and helping facilitate these caravans, helping facilitate migrant families coming up to the southern border of the United States and getting into our country. The fact that they're using our own money to bring people into our country is appalling.
That's something a lot of people didn't realize. Congressman, we've heard in the past that when pressed upon it, you know, Joe Biden's all worried about COVID vaccine mandates for businesses and things like that, but there is no mandate when you come into the country. But the White House says, you know, they're being tested, but the federal government is not testing them. There are these non-government organizations like Catholic Charities and things like that. They're being paid by the federal government to do that when they can. But the migrants can say, you know what, I don't want to get tested. I don't want to take the shot. I just want to get on the bus. But at the same time, now you're saying that the United Nations is using U.S. tax dollars that they've been given by the federal government to then give a debit card to the migrants so that once they come north of the border, they've got a way to live in the United States. It sounds like indefinitely.
Well, these debit cards, they start long before they get to the border. So they're helping them get across Mexico from whatever nation they're starting in, and they're facilitating these migrant caravans. And, you know, the U.S. tax dollars are being used, but the Chinese contribute to the UN, and some of our adversaries are helping facilitate this as well with quite a bit of money to the UN. So it's appalling that we're actually supporting and funding this working against us.
Since you're from Texas, wanted to call attention to our lead story today, and that is crime. And now in Austin, Austin is one of a dozen major U.S. cities that has broken the homicide record this year. The previous homicide record was back in 1984, 59 homicides, and so far 88 this year, and there's still, what, 3 weeks left in the year. That's just crazy. What is going on in Austin, Texas?
Well, first of all, Austin, Texas was once a wonderful place to visit and live, and it has deteriorated. The homeless camps across the city have increased crime. The outpouring of anti-police rhetoric from their head of government, the mayor there, who, remember, he was the gentleman that was vacationing in Cabo while he was telling everyone in Austin to stay home and hunker down during the COVID crisis. There's a total lack of leadership, and Austin has really become the hotspot for not only crime, but for the anti-police movement in Texas. Thankfully, it's not that great of a population center compared to the rest of the state. It's certainly the liberal hotspot of Texas, but the rest of the state, I don't believe, is on board with the way the people of Austin have pushed police out of their lives, and I think that you get what you pay for. And unfortunately, the people of Austin that run that city have worked very hard to talk down to the police and push them out of the city.
Well, they certainly have their hands full in Texas between the border and the crime in Austin, the murders in Austin. It's jaw-dropping. Congressman Lance Gooden, sir, thank you very much for joining us today.